gentlemen, welcome back to the Dark and Stormy Nights. This is Loki.
And this is Tyr.
And today we are planning something. Well, our bad guy's planning something. So we are planning what our bad guy's planning. So meta. So
that's kind of how it works.
I incepted you with my inception talk.
But the day that we figure out how to just create the characters and let them take off with the story, I will get so much more work done.
You know, so I'm just learning programming, just starting. Okay. And one of the things I want to make a jump to after I get a handle on C++ is Unreal. The Unreal Engine makes video games.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it would be neat to maybe make a mini game out of our Fae Underground or something like that. That might be fun.
That'd be cool.
So, but I got a long ways to go.
Right.
We're definitely not doing that in the next few months, maybe in a year or two.
Right.
So, but okay, so we've determined that Nigel is at the door, right?
Right. Nigel, where we left off was Nigel had been trying to get a hold of Lee through like basically an entire chapter. And in the end, he finally shows up at the door, and he's like, "You're done ignoring me."
Right. Yeah. I found you, motherfucker.
Right.
So he shows up at the door, and so in this following chapter, Lee discovers that he needs to deliver the treaty because basically anybody else in the Combine is persona non grata, right?
So yeah, like they don't really have anybody else who has skirted their rules really and built, you know, the kind of reputation with the Fae and the other that Lee has.
Is it funny that in the beginning Lee is seen as kind of a hard-ass character or whatever, but really it turns out this whole time he was their best bet with the Fae? You know, like he was the guy who wasn't so bad. He was the lesser evil, right?
Right. Well, I mean, the truth is that it's because he was breaking their rules. It was because he wasn't just hauling all the people who had a bounty on them. You know,
right.
Like if the bounty wasn't worth it to him, then he skipped out on, you know, collecting. And
right.
He built a relationship with that Fae instead. Granted, it was probably not always the best relationship, but it was probably better than being handed over to the sorcerers.
Right.
You know? So as far as that goes, it's kind of the fact that he didn't obey their, you know, rules and their expectations that made him the perfect fit for being the one to save the day in the end, really.
Right. So, all right. So Nigel susses out the message with him, right? I mean, I'm sure he's got some kind of official documentation or
right.
whatever. But that's not going to be good enough. Lee's going to have to go down there and talk his way in the door. He's going to have
Is Nigel going to discuss... I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, go ahead.
Is Nigel going to discuss the fact that there was the unauthorized attack with Lee?
I don't think Nigel knows. Why would Nigel know what happened in the underground?
Because it was on their screen during their meeting. He found out that their sorcerers
that
them.
I'm thinking you're talking about the explosion because
no,
Shayla...
not that. Yeah, no, the original, the mercenaries.
It's definitely a worthy question. Like, you know, what
because
the fuck?
If he doesn't bring it up, then
well,
Lee's going in
hasn't
blind.
been brought to Lee's attention that it happened.
That's what I'm saying. Does Nigel bring it up to Lee before he sends him down there? He would have to.
Maybe Lee does know. Maybe Lee's like, yeah, but what's with the strike team?
Yeah, want to explain that?
Right.
Okay.
And then Nigel has to explain we had a rogue cell we had to eliminate.
Okay. Okay.
But then, yeah, Lee's going to want some kind of guarantee they were, you know, this was really taken care of. What proof do I have that this was taken care of? You know.
Okay.
Something, you know. And maybe Nigel's willing to take a representative to see that these people have been brought to justice or something like that, you know.
Or he uses magic to open a window so he can
something,
see it or
yeah.
something. Okay. All right. So Nigel kind of proves that was not their doing.
Right. Or those, at the very least, those people don't represent us, as, you know, as a whole.
As a whole. Okay. So Nigel smooths things over with Lee, gets Lee on his side, and gets him to agree that he'll take this down to the underground.
Yeah.
So then Lee's going to go to the underground and try to I think he's going to try to stand apart from the Combine, you know?
Right.
But also be like, I'm just the messenger.
Well, I mean, let's face facts. The treaty is in the best interest of both parties. You know,
right.
Nobody needs war here.
Right.
Because there's going to be losses on both sides. You know, so the idea that, you know, war is better is just ridiculous.
Right, and it's just more work for Lee, so he's not going to be on the side of war.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I'm getting too old for this shit.
Right.
So, no. Yeah, and I mean, and maybe at that point, you know, once he's down there, you know, given the call, you've got Annalise trying to, you know, this is ridiculous. You know, we can't trust them or whatever.
Right. I think that Annalise is going to kind of interject her own opinion as far as, you know, the sorcerers have already proven to us who they are. This is who they've always been for 100 years, and this is who they'll always be, you know, and she's going to try to continue to maintain that even this treaty is just another attempt to stab them in the back.
Right, yeah. How long is it to the next time they try to overthrow us? And
right, exactly. And so she's going to keep pushing that button. And you know, they're going to point to the Bodak and point out that, you know, it wasn't just the mercenary attack. It wasn't just that. You know, how do you explain this? And that's going to kind of clear up maybe that situation.
Well, and the thing, Lee can be like, the Bodak, the thing that was killing sorcerers, you think was sent here by the sorcerers.
Right.
But was killing sorcerers.
So, yeah, he'll have to clear that up. And, you know, try to find out who killed the Bodak from them.
Right.
You know?
Well, they do know that was a rather large boot. And Gary could be sizing up Annalise's boots.
That's true. So, yeah, maybe Lee kind of gets an answer out of, you know, that Annalise was the one who killed him, and he's starting to eye her a little funny, too, you know?
Right.
That could be clue one.
Maybe raise the same question that Empath did.
Right.
You know?
Oh, I like this. Okay, so, yeah. So he finds opposition in Annalise. And then when the truth comes out about the Bodak, he asks how it died. If you know about it, how did it die? And then the finger gets pointed at Annalise.
Right. But yeah, the same Bodak that killed sorcerers, the same Bodak that kidnapped our friend.
Right.
Why would we be in charge of something that's been hurting us?
Mm-hmm.
You know? Like, or how would we have sent something that's...
Okay. So at this point, you know, he's starting to make sense to a good chunk of these other...
Right.
of the witches of the Fae. You know, they're starting to come to his side, and there was already plenty who were reluctant to go to war anyway.
Right.
So she's starting to see her number of loyalists dwindle, and that's a problem. Okay. But she's going to keep arguing, I think, and that's only going to draw more attention from Lee.
And then I think at the moment she thinks that the scales have tipped too far away from her, I think she's going to disappear.
Mm-hmm.
I think she's just going to fade.
I think as soon as she starts to get too much of Lee's attention. Yeah, because she knows who Lee is, even if Lee doesn't know who she is.
But yeah, this is served two purposes. Mm-hmm. This has served the purpose of losing her support.
Not all of it.
But
still have
she's
some
definitely
loyalists.
lost a lot of support.
Too much, yes.
Not enough to... She now no longer has enough support to win this battle on her own.
Right.
And at the same time, she has gotten too much recognition from her opposition.
Right.
Excuse me. So now that too much attention's on her, she's going to have to make other moves.
Right. So now that she's down to a much smaller army, and the sorcerers are actually gaining support, she knows that she's going to need more bodies in this fight. And as a Fae ruler, her option is going to be seeking out her true people.
Right.
So what we had discussed is as far as
so if I
the
can't claim my
world
birthright
goes.
here, I'll claim my birthright in the other world and come back for it.
Right. So as far as like the world goes, what we had discussed was that in the days of, you know, the witch trials and everything, when the sorcerers were able to boot the fae and the witches out of their territory, you know,
Right.
of
Well,
their
that's the
ruling
thing.
class.
They eliminated. They murdered the witches and closed the portals in the fae.
Right. So they booted out the fae and closed all the doors. So the fae for centuries probably have not been able to come through.
No.
And like we said, there are some wild gates, some wild like holes.
Sure, that's how the occasional fae still wanders through.
The occasional human drops through and becomes a slave in the fae world.
Yeah,
And
it goes both ways.
right. And so what she needs, but they're not big holes. So it's
and they're very temporary. Not, you know, it's
and
not
they pop
reliable.
Up, right. They pop up here and there, and then you have to hope that they'll stay long enough for you to get back through.
Right. Or you're trapped.
Or you're trapped, yeah, until you find a new one. So the thing is that Annalise knows that it would take an immense amount of power for her to open an intentional doorway after the sorcerers have sealed off the world.
Yeah, so it might take a dark god or, you know, serious blood sacrifice or something.
Right.
But she just does not have that power readily available.
Right. So what she's going to start doing is hunting for a wild gate, because that's the simplest solution, is to go back, gather support, and bring it back through with her.
So I think wild gates happen because the membrane between our worlds thins in that area for some reason or another. And usually it's some kind of superstitious thing.
Or I was thinking like an overuse of power or, you know, something.
But it's also amplified by auspices such as full moon or, you know, things like that. So
she waits for a celestial event and then...
She looks for a celestial event, like the aligning of the Pleiades or something like that, you know? Yeah, she looks for something that's happening, like, sooner than later.
Okay.
And then goes to one of those places.
So we were talking about the fact that at this point we need to maybe expose Rowan. Is that the right name? Yeah, Rowan, for her true position under Annalise. So we have Annalise return back to start going through, like, to her house or wherever, where she's holding Rowan. And she starts hunting for a way to locate a wild gate. And in the meantime, Rowan sees the change in disposition in her because she's losing support, she's losing control, and so she's upset. And so she starts pulling information. And when she finds out about her plan to pull an army through, Rowan's loyalty has never really been with Raina/Annalise, but she doesn't have a choice.
Right.
And so I think it's time to show the reader that Rowan is not with her by choice.
Right.
So when she starts to question Annalise, and she says, you know, the sorcerers are open to sharing their rule. You know, why isn't just a seat at the table enough for you? And we think that Raina/Annalise would react violently.
Yeah.
And tell her, you know, to remember her place and who owns her.
Right.
And that way the reader sees that Rowan is in fact her slave.
Right.
You know, or her, I mean, yeah, her slave.
Property of house, whatever.
Yeah. Where do we want to end this chapter?
Well, what's the end game of it, really? Do you want her to pass through? Do you want her to go to the other side?
I think that she should at least locate it and be prepared to go through.
I mean, because I don't have a problem with you ending it with her walking through the gate, you know?
Okay. Do you want a glimpse into the other world, or do you want to just end it with, you know, Rowan's waiting on one side and Annalise is leaving her behind to go through?
I mean, yeah, I don't know that she'd take Rowan with her.
She wouldn't. I'm saying, like, she leaves her here.
Yeah. So yeah, the chapter
like that's what I'm saying.
starts by realizing that she doesn't have enough support here,
Chapter starts with Nigel and Lee.
Yeah, well, okay, but then
Her
once
part, yeah.
Yeah, her part starts with realizing she doesn't have enough support here, figuring out what she's got to do to gain that support, crossing over.
And like I'm saying, do you want to show her on the other side a glimpse into the world, and then she's
no, not necessarily.
Just walking through.
I think we can do the next chapter on the other side, or we can go someplace else and have her walking to the other side in a following chapter or something like that. So we can go back to, the Fae and the Combine coming together maybe in the next chapter, or we could cross over and follow Annalise. It doesn't really matter. Either one would be fine. But both things are happening simultaneously. Something is going on between the Combine and the Fae, where they're either coming to terms, and maybe you still have that small faction that is radicalized against this whole idea.
Well, they basically have to build a new ruling class.
Right.
Or
reinstate the old one. But the old one was probably deeply flawed as well, because it was still rooted in a time where slavery was okay among the Combine and the Fae and other, and stuff. And that's not okay anymore. And then this betrayal they need to fix.
Right, but you have to also figure, again. Like back in those days, there was also even like among humans, classism was really
right, and that's
prominent.
What I'm saying is
so I'm saying
this isn't going to fly anymore.
Right, and they probably very much had some levels of Fae were respected, but the lower levels, goblins and trolls and stuff, were looked down on.
So
or maybe there was
the deep Fae and
stuff
like
certain
that.
kinds of shifters were respected, but wolves were never considered anything more than cattle. There was respect among some, but not others, and that's something that they'll have to clear up. I almost think that you should continue on with the Fae world. You're just better at world building, so play to your strengths. Because rebuilding a government anybody can do.
So maybe, like I said, maybe in the following chapter it's this, or it could. We don't have to walk through building a whole new constitution or anything. Just know that it's happening at the same time.
Yeah, no, you just have to show the negotiations. We don't have to stick on anything boring.
Right. So, and there's going to be some intriguing, weird shit happening while they're doing that. Maybe we might want to point out some of the dissenters that are trying to score their seat at the table or put their ideas into this new constitution or whatever.
Right. Maybe we have the priest show up and decide that he needs to be sitting at the table.
I never get any of the good corpses. I want that written in there.
There's somebody super old sitting in the corner and he just starts licking them. Not quite ripe yet.
Soon, my friend, soon.
Like a Hannibal Lecter, what was that?
With some fava beans and a nice Chianti.
Yeah, so I'm sure there's something we could put in there, but I think it'll be little glimpses of those negotiations in between the rest of the story. So, all right, well, we'll figure out where we're going next after we put this chapter together.
Do you think it's enough?
I think that's enough for this chapter. It might not be overly long, but that's fine because the last chapter was pretty long. And then we also had discussed some, endgame notes, and we're kind of shoring. It's time to start bringing those two ends together.
Sure.
So I think we're good.
Okay. So we'll come back next time with first chapter for you guys.
Yep.
So don't forget, check us out on Reddit at r/darkandstormynights, on Twitter at thedarkstormyk1. We're on Facebook. You can find the podcast anywhere podcasts can be found. And on YouTube. And so don't forget to follow, subscribe, leave a comment or a review. Tell your friends about us. We need the support. So we'll see you next time.
Bye.